You probably think you know why you do what you do. I go to work for money. I scroll my phone because I'm bored. I'm nice because I'm a good person. I eat junk food because it tastes good. Those answers feel true, but they're surface level. Underneath every decision, every habit, every quirk in your personality, there's a set of invisible psychological systems quietly pulling the strings. Your brain is constantly calculating rewards, repeating patterns, protecting your self-image, and trying to meet needs you don't even know you have. Today, you're going to see what those systems are. This is the hidden psychology behind why you do everything. Let's start with number 10. Number 10, your brain is a reward prediction machine. You don't just chase rewards, you chase better than expected rewards. Deep in your midbrain, dopamine neurons are constantly comparing what I thought would happen versus what actually happened. Neuroscientists call this a reward prediction error. When something turns out better than expected, you get more money, more praise, more pleasure than you predicted. Those neurons fire a burst of dopamine. That burst says, whatever you just did, do more of that. When things are exactly as expected, those neurons stay quiet. No big dopamine surge, no stronger habit. When something is worse than expected, dopamine activity actually dips below baseline. Your brain's way of saying, don't do that again. Over time, this tiny calculation drives a gigantic amount of your behavior. You check your phone because sometimes there's an exciting notification. Dopamine loves unpredictable rewards. You keep chasing more because the same reward, once expected, no longer gives you the same dopamine kick. You remember and repeat the rare wins more than the thousands of boring neutral moments. This isn't conscious. You don't sit. They're doing math in your head. The circuitry is baked into how your brain learns. Behind the scenes, your nervous system is constantly updating a giant internal spreadsheet of things that pay off versus things that don't. You're not just living your life, you're training a prediction engine that quietly decides what you feel drawn to and what you avoid. Number 9, habits. Run more of your life than willpower. You probably like to think you act based on decisions. I decided to go to the gym. I chose to grab a snack. I plan to check my email. But a huge chunk of what you do every day is not a decision at all. It's a habit, a behavior triggered automatically by a context. Psychologists define habits as actions you've repeated so often in the same situation that they now run on autopilot when that cue appears. For example, walk into the kitchen in the evening, open the fridge, sit down at your desk, open social media, feel your phone buzz, pick it up without thinking. Studies show that 3 ingredients build habits. Frequency, you do the behavior often. Context stability, you do it in the same environment or situation. Reward, it feels good or relieves something bad. Over time, your brain links the context straight to the action. You skip the do I feel like it step. As Wendy Wood's work on habit psychology shows, habits become the default mode of behavior. Efficient, fast, and emotion light. People who look like they have great self-control often just have good habits. Systems that trigger the right behavior without a huge internal battle. The hidden psychology here? Much of what you think is you choosing is actually your environment pressing your habit buttons. Change the cues, and your personality changes more than you'd expect. Number 8, you do things to satisfy 3 deep psychological needs. If you strip away all the details of your life, your job, your hobbies, your relationships, your behavior is still being pulled in the same 3 directions. According to self-determination theory, humans everywhere are driven by 3 basic psychological needs. Autonomy, the need to feel like you are choosing your actions. Competence, the need to feel effective and capable. Relatedness, the need to feel connected and cared for by others. When these needs are met, people show more motivation, better performance, and higher well-being. When they're blocked, motivation collapses. Classroom studies, for example, find that when students feel more autonomy, competence, and relatedness, they show higher intrinsic motivation, more enjoyment, and less pressure. When these needs are frustrated, they feel controlled, stressed, and checked out. Think about how this plays out in your life. You hate being micromanaged at work, not just because it's annoying, but because it kills your sense of autonomy. You procrastinate on tasks that make you feel stupid because they threaten your competence. You stay in group chats or social circles that drain you because your need for relatedness is so strong, you'd rather feel bad with people than alone without them. Almost everything you do, from chasing goals to avoiding certain conversations, is a negotiation around these three needs. You're not just scrolling, working, flirting, arguing, or gaming. You're constantly, unconsciously asking, does this make me feel in control? Does this make me feel capable? Does this make me feel connected? When the answer is yes to all three, you feel alive. When it's no too often, everything starts to feel pointless. Number 7, your brain automates good and bad. Coping. When life is stressful, your conscious mind gets tired fast, so your brain does something efficient. It automates whatever seems to reduce discomfort and turns it into a habit, whether it's good for you long-term or not. Reach for junk food every time you're sad, scroll your phone when you're anxious, pour a drink whenever you've had a hard day. If those behaviors reliably take the edge off, your brain quietly flags them as effective coping. Repeat them in the same emotional context enough times, and they become habits the moment that feeling appears. Research on habits shows that context and reward make behaviors automatic, even for complex, multi-step actions. That's why you might find yourself opening an app without even remembering deciding to, or standing in front of the fridge without being consciously hungry, or saying yes to someone before you've checked whether you actually want to. Your nervous system isn't asking, is this wise? It's asking, did this reduce pain last time? Once the answer is yes, a few dozen times in a row, welcome to autopilot. The hidden Bassin's psychology is brutal. Some of your most self-sabotaging patterns began as your brain trying to help, locking in whatever gave you relief when you needed it most. Number 6, you care more about being right than being happy. You'd think your brain's main job is to keep you safe or make you happy. A huge part of it is actually trying to keep you consistent. There's a powerful force in human psychology called cognitive consistency, the drive to make sure your beliefs, self-image, and actions all match. When there's a gap, like believing I'm smart but failing a test, you feel cognitive dissonance, that uncomfortable tension between what you want to be true and what reality shows you. To get rid of that discomfort, your brain has options. Change the belief. Maybe I'm not always smart. Change the behavior. I'll study differently next time. Or more sneakily, change the story. The test was unfair. The teacher hates me. Guess which one is easiest in the moment? This is why people double down on bad decisions rather than admit they were wrong. Stay in relationships that clearly aren't working because I'm not someone who gives up. Rewrite the past to make themselves look less at fault. Your brain would rather twist the narrative than sit quietly with I was wrong, I failed, or I'm not who I thought I was. From the outside, it looks irrational. From the inside, it feels like survival. You're not just protecting your life, you're protecting your story about your life. Number 5, you judge yourself by intentions and others by outcomes. Here's a sneaky bias that shapes almost every interaction you have. When you mess up, you judge yourself based on what you meant to do. When someone else messes up, you judge them based on what they did. I was late because I had a bad day. They were late because they're inconsiderate. You know your own context, stress, and hidden motives. You don't see theirs, so your brain quietly runs 2 different moral accounting systems, one for you, but I tried, one for everyone else, results only. This is part of a wider tendency in social psychology. We overweight personality, they're just like that. An underweight situation, maybe today was horrible for them, when explaining other people's behavior. Meanwhile, we do the opposite for ourselves. Why? Because your brain has backstage access to its own intentions and zero access to anyone else's. So when you say things like, I'm actually a good person, I just struggle, while thinking, they're just toxic, you're not necessarily right or wrong. You're just running on default psychology. Recognizing this doesn't mean excusing bad behavior. It means noticing that you tell a very generous story about yourself and a much harsher one about everyone else. And those stories drive how you act far more than the raw facts. Number 4, you're always predicting, rarely just experiencing. You probably think you react to the world as it happens. You see something, you react. You hear something, you react. But modern neuroscience suggests your brain is doing almost the opposite. It constantly predicts what will happen next, then updates those predictions when it's wrong. That reward prediction error system? It doesn't just handle money and snacks. It helps your brain learn everything from language to social cues. According to reinforcement learning models, dopamine neurons fire not to rewards themselves, but to unexpected changes in expectation. Hear a tone that's been paired with a reward? Dopamine spike at the tone, not at the treat. Over time, your brain gets so good at predicting that most of the time, there is no error signal. You live in a world that feels stable because your predictions are accurate. But when the prediction error is big, someone betrays you, something amazing happens, something terrible blindsides you, that's when your brain snaps to attention, rewires, and you feel it as a huge emotional event. You're not just reacting to life, you're constantly comparing what is to what I expected. Your mood, your motivation, even your sense of fairness are anchored to that invisible comparison. That's why getting a $50 bonus when you expected nothing feels incredible. But getting $50 when you expected $500 feels like an insult. Same outcome, different prediction, completely different psychology. Number 3, you're programmed for shortcuts, not accuracy. Thinking is expensive. Your brain is a 1.3 kilogram organ that burns about 20% of your body's energy, so it cuts corners constantly. Psychologists call these shortcuts heuristics. They're fast, efficient rules of thumb, great most of the time, disastrously wrong some of the time. For example, availability. Heuristic. If something is easy to recall, like a plane crash, you assume it's more common even if the statistics say otherwise. Anchoring. The first number you see, a starting price, a salary, a guess, pulls your later judgments toward it, even if it's random. Confirmation bias. You seek and remember information that agrees with what you already believe and ignore what doesn't. Why is this the hidden psychology behind everything? Because these shortcuts don't just affect how you judge facts. They shape what you pay attention to, who you trust, and what you think you're capable of. You might underestimate slow, long-term risks like burnout or climate change because they're not vivid. Overestimate rare threats like stranger danger because they make dramatic headlines. Stay stuck in limiting beliefs because you only consume content that confirms them. Your brain is trying to save energy. Accuracy is optional. When you say, I just have a feeling, what you often have is a stack of shortcuts dressed up as certainty. Number 2, you want control more than you want comfort. On paper, you might say you want success, happiness, or peace. Psychologically, one of the things you crave most is control. Not necessarily control over other people, control over your own life. Self-determination. Theory shows that feeling autonomous, feeling like you chose your actions rather than being forced, is a core psychological need tied to motivation and mental health. People will stay in a bad job because at least they chose it while resisting a better path that feels imposed. Sabotage a plan they didn't come up with just to prove no one else gets to run their life. Choose a familiar misery over an unfamiliar possibility because at least the misery is predictable. You might say you want change, but if that change makes you feel like you're not the one steering the wheel, your brain treats it like a threat to your autonomy. Marketers, politicians, and even abusive people exploit this. They make you feel like you're choosing freely, even when everything about the situation has been engineered. The hidden psychology here is unsettling. You would rather be wrong on your own terms than right on someone else's. If you've ever rejected good advice just because you didn't want to be told what to do, that was your autonomy system talking. Number 1, everything you do protects some version of you. Under all the dopamine, habits, needs, and shortcuts, there's one thing your mind is obsessed with protecting: your sense of self. Who you think you are, what kind of person you believe you are, what story you're telling yourself about your life. This isn't just philosophy. Psychological research and theories of motivation consistently show that behaviors are wrapped around identity. Habits don't just help you reach goals. Over time, they become who you are in your own eyes. Motivation grows stronger when actions line up with your values and chosen identity, autonomous motivation. People will endure enormous discomfort to stay consistent with a chosen role: good parent, successful person, rebel, helper, victim, survivor. If deep down you believe I'm a failure, you will unconsciously pick goals and relationships that keep confirming it. Because as twisted as it sounds, being right about your identity feels safer than being happy. If you secretly hold, I'm the strong one who doesn't need help, you'll reject support even when you desperately need it, because accepting it would shatter your identity as the strong one. Your brain is constantly doing invisible math. Does this action fit who I believe I am? If yes, it feels natural. If no, it feels wrong, even if it's good for me. This is why identity level change is so hard. You're not just Changing habits. You're editing the main character of your story. Conclusion. You're not as mysterious as you feel. And that's good news. So, let's pull this together. Behind everything you do, there are a few powerful psychological engines running all the time. A dopamine system chasing better than expected rewards. A habit system that automates whatever you repeat in stable contexts. 3 basic needs: autonomy, competence, and relatedness, quietly steering what feels right or wrong. A coping system that locks in whatever reduces pain, whether it's healthy or not. A consistency system that would rather protect your story than admit it's wrong. A shortcut system that sacrifices accuracy for speed. An identity system that wants your actions to match who you think you are. You are not just randomly like this. You are the sum of what your brain finds rewarding, what your environment has trained you to do, how your core needs have been treated, and which story about yourself you've repeated the most. Here's the good news. Once you see the hidden psychology, you can start using it on purpose. Want to build a new habit? Stop relying on willpower and design stable cues, plus small rewards. Want more motivation? Aim for goals that give you autonomy, competence, and real connection. Want to break a bad pattern? Instead of asking what's wrong with me, ask what need is this unhealthy behavior trying to meet, and how can I meet it a better way? You'll never be completely free of these systems. They are how your brain works, but you can go from being unknowingly driven by them to working with them. If this made your own behavior make a little more sense, hit subscribe for more deep dives into the psychology behind everyday life, and tell me in the comments, which part of your life suddenly looks different now that you can see the machinery underneath it?